Imagine this: an ancient tribe veiled in prophetic mystery for over 3 millennia, often accused of spawning the Antichrist and fueling apocalyptic chaos from history's margins. For centuries, Bible scholars, theologians, and prophecy interpreters have scrutinized maps of ancient Israel, casting wary glances northward with a mix of suspicion and foreboding. Yet, what if the narrative of the tribe of Dan transcends a mere cautionary tale of doom? What if it unveils a profound theological tapestry of God's inexhaustible mercy, demonstrating that even the most prodigal, idolatry-entrenched, and seemingly forsaken are eternally within the grasp of the sovereign Yahweh, a God who delights in redeeming the irredeemable? Have you pondered the enigmatic absence of Dan from the sealed 144,000 in Revelation 7? This omission has ignited countless speculations, birthing eschatological fears that fracture the church, pitting those hunting cursed bloodlines against those anchored in the gospel's redemptive core. Drawing from the original Hebrew and Greek texts, ancient Jewish midrashim, patristic writings, archaeological discoveries, and contemporary scholarly exegesis, we uncover a narrative not of exclusion but of divine pedagogy, a journey from judgment to grace, mirroring the soteriological arc of Scripture itself. This expanded exploration, weaving biblical truth with historical and archaeological insights, reveals Dan as a mirror for every believer's spiritual journey, from failure to triumph through God's boundless mercy. To fully appreciate Dan's story, we must first contextualize it within the broader patriarchal narrative. Welcome to Understanding the Word. I'm Pastor Najam. The 12 tribes of Israel emerge from Jacob's sons, each embodying unique traits shaped by family dynamics, divine interventions, and human frailties. Dan, as the 5th son, occupies a peripheral yet pivotal role, symbolizing the inclusion of the marginalized in God's covenant. But his tribe's path is fraught with challenges, from territorial struggles to spiritual defection, culminating in prophetic symbols that span from Genesis to Revelation. To grasp Dan's trajectory, we must return to its genesis amid patriarchal strife. In Genesis 30, 1-6, Rachel's barrenness fuels a desperate rivalry with Leah, leading her to offer her servant Bilhah to Jacob. The child's birth prompts Rachel's cry, "God has judged me, Danite, and has also heard my voice." The name Dan derives from the Hebrew root din, connoting not mere judgment but vindication, governance, and divine equity. Theologically, Dan embodies Yahweh's justice for the marginalized, born not of primary wives but a handmaid, symbolizing the inclusion of the peripheral in Israel's covenant community. This birth narrative is rich with layers. According to the Jewish Encyclopedia, Dan is listed with minimal details in genealogies, underscoring his secondary status. Yet, midrashic traditions such as Yalkut Shimoni date his birth to the 9th of Elul, living 125 years, and portray him as a progenitor of prolific descendants, quick, sharp, and numerous, second only to Judah in population during the wilderness census. This growth reflects divine favor despite humble beginnings, a theme echoed in Emunah Builder's analysis. Dan as the least distinguished tribe, yet empowered to conquer adversity through faith. Biblical scholars highlight Dan's association with judgment and law, tying to his name's meaning. In the Exodus, Danite Aholiab co-labors with Bezalel on the tabernacle, blending Dan's peripheral role with sacred service. This foreshadows Dan's theological arc, from desperation's child to a bridge between core Israel and its fringes. Fast forward to Jacob's eschatological blessings in Genesis 49, 16-18, pronounced in the latter days. Dan shall judge his people as one of the tribes of Israel. Dan shall be a serpent in the way, a viper by the path, that bites the horse's heels so that his rider falls backward. I wait for your salvation, O Lord. Modern ears equate serpent with satanic evil, but ancient Near Eastern symbolism and Hebrew nuance reveal a multifaceted image.
Nachash
Evokes cunning, wisdom, and guardianship, while Shephaphan suggests a horned viper's strategic strike, emblematic of guerrilla warfare and border defense. Matthew Henry's commentary posits two interpretations. Generally, Dan's tribe would use subtlety against enemies, equal despite concubine descent, specifically referencing Samson, who annoyed Philistines indirectly without field battles. Kaufman's commentary adds the serpent as Cerastes cornutus, a camouflaged viper, symbolizing Dan's cunning victories, like the Laish expedition and Samson's feats. Jewish traditions portray Dan as Israel's rear guard, and judge, akin to Samson's solo exploits against Philistines, a Danite hero who judges through providential cunning. Yet Jacob's plea for salvation hints at peril. Dan's gifts could veer into deception if untethered from Yahweh. This foreshadows a theological tension, divine endowments as double-edged swords. Enduring Word commentary notes Dan's troublesome history, introducing idolatry, golden calf center, possibly Antichrist link. Omitted from Revelation 7, 5-8, but first in Ezekiel 48, showing redemption. Jacob's cry for Yeshua may allude to Jesus. Inspired scripture lessons detail Dan's blessing, meant as mighty warriors judging the wicked, yet a child of the flesh, wanting to kill Joseph out of jealousy, out of grace, included in tribes. Dan's story darkens in the conquest era. Allotted coastal land near Philistines, they falter, migrating north to conquer Laish. En route, they pilfer Micah's idols and Levite priest, establishing a syncretistic cult in their renamed city, Dan, a breach of Deuteronomy 12's centralized worship. This house of gods becomes a theological pivot. Dan's judgment gift morphs into self-idolatry, echoing humanity's fall. Archaeology corroborates this. Tel Dan's excavations reveal a high place with calf imagery, aligning with 1 Kings 12:28-30, where Jeroboam erects golden calves in Bethel and Dan to thwart Jerusalem pilgrimages. Dan, as northern epicenter, symbolizes covenantal apostasy. Theologically, this illustrates corporate sin's ripple. One tribe's defection corrupts the nation, akin to a Chan's sin or the church's call to purity. The Bible Archaeology Report details 3 discoveries at Dan: city gates, Canaanite mudbrick arch and Israelite Iron Age gate with possible judgment seat; high place, platform for Jeroboam's calf with cultic artifacts like horned altar; Tel Dan stele, 9th century BCE Aramaic inscription mentioning House of David, confirming biblical kings. In Chronicles genealogies, Dan's brevity or omission reflects this stigma, not eternal damnation, but historical marginalization post-Assyrian exile. Scholars note Dan's possible assimilation or decimation, yet this underscores Yahweh's sovereignty. Tribes rise and fall under divine providence. The Song of Deborah questions, and Dan, why did he remain in ships, suggesting maritime ties, possibly with Phoenicians or sea peoples. Archaeological evidence supports this, portraying Dan as seafaring, explaining their coastal struggles and northern migration. No Danite figure looms larger than Samson, embodying the tribe's cunning and peril. His story is a theological masterpiece of divine empowerment amid human frailty. Birth and vow. Announced by an angel to Manoah's barren wife, Samson is a Nazirite from birth. No wine, unclean food, or razor. This sets him apart for deliverance from Philistines, paralleling other miraculous births. Rabbinic literature views him as a judge beginning Israel's salvation, with feats like lion-slaying symbolizing sun myths, though rooted in folk tales against oppressors. Exploits and weaknesses. Empowered by God's Spirit, Samson tears a lion, burns fields with foxes, slays 1,000 with a jawbone and carries Gaza's gates. Yet he violates vows, eating honey from the lion, feasting with wine implied, and revealing his secret to Delilah. Delilah, bribed with silver coins, cuts his hair, leading to capture, blinding, and grinding grain. Death and redemption. In Dagon's temple, hair regrown, Samson prays for strength, collapses pillars, killing more Philistines than in life. His life illustrates resisting temptation, God's use of flawed men, sin's consequences, and mercy. Redemption. Despite failure, God restores strength for purpose. Theological significance. Samson compares to heroes like Heracles or Gilgamesh, with solar archetypes. Bible Odyssey portrays him as judge assisting Danites against Philistines, betrayed by women, dying heroically. Samson's story reinforces Dan's theme. Gifts misused lead to downfall, but grace restores. Patristic speculation links Dan to the Antichrist, originating in pre-Christian Jewish texts and amplified by Irenaeus, citing Jeremiah 8:16. The snorting of his horses is heard from Dan, as prophetic of a Danite Antichrist, blending Genesis 49's serpent with Revelation's omission. Hippolytus suggests Antichrist springs from Dan, counterfeiting Christ from Judah. Critiques abound. Jeremiah 8 contextually depicts Babylonian invasion from the north, Dan as geographic entry, not genetic harbinger. The Antichrist's portrayal in Daniel and Revelation suggests a Gentile beast from the sea, not Israelite tribes. Theologically, this theory risks Gnostic dualism, positing evil bloodlines contra Scripture's emphasis on personal sin and universal redemption. The theory persists due to fear, but distracts from theology. Revelation 7:4-8's 144,000, 12,000 from each tribe, sealed for service, omits Dan and Ephraim, including Levi, unusually. Scholars interpret this as a symbolic military census, emblematic of the church as New Israel, a holy army undefiled by idolatry. Dan and Ephraim, historical idolatry hubs, are excluded to underscore purity, not eternal loss. Greek esphragizo evokes covenant protection, teaching that unrepentant sin bars wartime service, yet grace restores. This symbolic approach aligns with apocalyptic genre, numbers as qualitative, not literal demographics. Omission warns against apostasy, but doctrines from silence must yield to explicit affirmations. Dan missing in Revelation due to apostasy disqualifying witness role, included in Ezekiel's millennial land as tribe repents post-second coming. These highlight shared motifs of judgment and restoration. If Revelation 7 depicts trial and holiness, Ezekiel 48 unveils eschatological verdict, restoration in the millennial kingdom. Amid visions of a renewed temple and land, Ezekiel lists tribal allotments. These are the names of the tribes, beginning at the northern extreme, a portion for Dan. Dan heads the list, receiving prime northern territory with a gate in the New Jerusalem. Theologically, this signifies Yahweh's sovereignty over history, equal portions of firm covenantal equity, transcending past failures. Dan's prominence counters Revelation's omission, illustrating progressive revelation. Judgment yields to mercy. As handmaiden tribe, Dan's frontier placement in Joshua evolves to honored inclusion, mirroring the prodigal's return and Israel's grafting. Some distinguish Ezekiel's natural Israel from Revelation's spiritual Israel, yet both converge in new creation. Dan's millennial inclusion post-repentance fulfills all Israel's salvation. Restoration echoes underscore agape. Ezekiel's river of life echoes Revelations. Dan's arc encapsulates Scripture's meta-narrative. Creation, fall, redemption, restoration. From vindicated birth to idolatrous fall, symbolic exclusion to glorious reinstatement, it proclaims Yahweh's covenant love as unbreakable. The Antichrist myth, while rooted in sincere exegesis, distracts from Paul's admonition, eschew myths and endless genealogies for faith stewardship. Instead, confront the Antichrist spirit, denying Christ's incarnation through gospel proclamation. Beloved, Dan is the Bible's prodigal tribe, reflecting every soul's potential exile and homecoming. Your past, idolatry, defection, serpentine paths, does not define you, Christ's blood does. In the New Jerusalem, Dan's gate beckons. Enter through the Lamb, for God's mercy triumphs over judgment. Cease shadow hunting, behold the light, Jesus, who sets captives free. This exposition, drawing from diverse sources, underscores Dan's enduring message. No failure is beyond God's reach. As Romans 11:29 affirms, His gifts and calling are irrevocable. May this study inspire faith, dispel fear, and draw you closer to the victor.